That's a very reasonable question. Why can't the lizard people just be normal? Welcome back to Total War Warhammer 2. I'm your host, Any Pride, and we're back at it with the Trials of Tzeentch, where the Changer of Ways will either bless us with a workable army or curse us with an absolutely trash tier 1, and we're going to plunge into a multiplayer battle and try to win with whatever the auto random generator gives us. It's not going to be an easy task whatsoever. We have Krotgar on foot here, and we are playing as the Lizardmen, who have received quite a few changes in the Vampire Coast patch. Now, it hasn't been my favorite patch ever for them, let's be honest. The getting rid of the healing, overall, I think was a good thing for the faction. It wasn't something they really deserved to have. If the Lizard people want to get healing, I think that Lore of Life would be a perfectly reasonable alternative for that. But Cold Blooded should have never had anything to do with healing. So that change was good. But giving Rampage to the entire roster, not my favorite thing in the world. And it does make them quite an interesting faction to play with right now. And by interesting, I mean, why? CA, why do you hate the Lizardmen so much? Why are you doing this? Now, obviously, they're gearing up for a DLC release that will be coming in either March or April, maybe May, or from January or February. We don't know exactly yet, but it's going to be in early 2019, and they'll get new factions, they'll get new units, they'll get a bunch of new toys, but we're going to have to wait a bit. And in the meantime, we have a Lizardmen faction that is very, very dependent on Cold Blooded to stop Rampage. Now, there was a change to Cold Blooded, and it is that it will now stop units from rampaging and give whatever unit you cast it on plus 16 leadership, which isn't the worst thing ever. And it means with a lord and a hero, you can definitely do some controlling of your cavalry and that kind of stuff. But was it really a trade-off that was worth it? I don't know. This is not going to be necessarily the best representation of what Rampage is all about because, of course, we are rocking an auto-gen army here, but it is going to be a very fun and very close battle nonetheless. We are playing against someone from Arid Luin, and he is rocking one that is not Trials of Tzeentch, so he's going to be going for a counter build here with what he can. And we have some Feral Cold ones in the back line to do some harassing and maybe get some rear charges with their armor piercing, but they rampage. My big ol' scary T-Rex will rampage. Pretty much everything on my roster will rampage except for the Chameleon Skinks and the, I guess the Temple Guard, which we have 2 of to deal with all the Beastmen in the front, and Minotaurs and Centaurs and all the things like that. We do have some Pterodon Riders with Fire Liege Bolas on the flank, Harpies and Centaurs with throwing axes out on this side, and this is just a fantastic unit if you're playing the Beastmen. One of the best units overall in the game, I would argue. I mean, they're incredibly versatile, really good in pretty much most matchups. I love them. I mean, perfect vigor, and the fact that they have good melee stats and that armor-piercing missile damage. It's great for killing dinos. It's great for killing pretty much everything on the Lizardmen roster. On the other side of the field here, Beastmen going with Malagor the Crowfather. Something wicked this way comes, and 2 Gorbals. Very scary. I mean, this is a hunting duo that can take down Carnosaurs, they can take down Stegodons, they can take down any big Jurassic Park build you can possibly think of, and Gorbals to get a big buff to their mass. So now they don't get thrown around like pinballs quite as much as they used to, and then Minotaurs with great weapons to support them. Ungor front line, and Korok's Man-Rippers, Bestigor Herd, are also very good in this matchup. Great versus Saurus, and great versus Dinos as well. Bonus versus large, and armor piercing means those halberds are going to be terrors in the night. So let's take a look here and see what these Beastmen are going to try to do. And early on, it's going to be a lot of skirmishing, a lot of Centaurs with throwing axes stuff going out on the flanks, trying to whittle down those feral Carnosaurs and just do a little bit of damage early on and equalize those numbers a bit. Now, single entities are what they're really going to want to go for. Temple Guard and the Saurus front line are going to have shields, so missile damage not going to be a big factor for them, and they have a ton of HP. But the feral Carnosaur, if you can get that thing to rampage early on, could be a really nice thing. Now, of course, Cold Blooded will be able to leash it back into play, but still, doing a lot of damage to a Carnosaur unit, 1,600 gold, going to be pretty nice, and the Harpies will be harassing early as we kind of retreat to the hill here. Beastmen want to do that skirmishing, and I didn't really want to sit out there and just take it on my Carnosaur and stuff, so we're moving into the trees, which should be able to block a lot of those shots, and the Harpies got a little bit overzealous in the beginning, moving up, taking some shots, and they'll start dropping like flies. Out on this flank, we have had an engagement here. Feral Cold Ones going into the Centaurs with throwing axes, who did not have their skirmish mode enabled, which he will fix right after that. He's going to lose 10 models, though, or 9 models, which isn't the best thing ever for Centaurs. And we're going to try to make a nice little fortification up here on the hill and wait for this inevitable Beastmen rush. We already are at a pretty big disadvantage because we didn't get to pick our army, so we've got to kind of pick the engagement that's really going to fit us here And even though the trees will kind of hurt the damage output of our Feral Stegodon and our Carnosaur and the Basilodon we have out on the left flank, at the very least, we can kind of block the shots from those throwing axes, and then, hell, it's just time to go in and start killing stuff. Ungors are going to melt in the face of this Rush army, and Krotgar on foot. Not what I would recommend against the Beastmen, but he's certainly not going to be terrible here. He's not going to be able to get sniped out very easily, and Malagor doesn't have Spirit Leech or access to Lure of Death, so we're not too worried about that kind of damage output from him. He has no single entity snipers that are really going to be scary for him. And then out on this flank, those throwing axes still putting a lot of pressure on us right now. So they could kind of circle around and get some downhill shots in. One thing that I will say about Total War Warhammer 2 compared to some of the previous Total War games in the series, do you guys remember in Medieval 2 how if you were on the downslope and firing upwards, your arrow fire would be a lot less effective, your range fire would be a lot less effective? It feels like that hasn't been a factor for quite a few Total War games now. I'm not sure why CA ever got rid of that. Either way, we're going to have the Beastmen come in now, and they're going to be charging straight uphill into the ranks of our Saurus, and we're going to do a little bit of countercharging with our Skink cohort, who are now out of ammunition, and the Temple Guards can also go in, and they're going to have a field day here. I mean, this is just going to be brutal combat for sure. These Ungor herd are going to get shish kebabbed and completely run over, and supported by the Feral Cold ones that should go very, very nicely. Stegodon charge up the center here into the Ungor herd, and a nice charge from the Poison Warhound is going to do a little bit of damage to the Temple Guard, but not too worried about them. Feral Carnosaur and the Feral Cold one's going to overlap, maybe cause some routing there. Krotgar is in the thick of it now, right in the center, and with that Reverend Spear of Schlanxla and his tail thwaps, Ungor herd are going to be crumbling under that Withering Assault. And some spells from Malagor the Dark Omen. Moving out on this side, Temple Guard holding the line very nicely. They're going to munch through these Ungors, and the Gorbals waiting in support. So the front line, of course, was always going to crumble very quickly for the Beastmen. It's this flank, where Korok's Man Rippers are, that it's really going to be a question whether they can hold or not. And that unit is scary for even Temple Guard. I mean, they're going to trade pretty cost efficiently in that kind of matchup as well. And with the Poison Warhounds coming in from behind, got to be very careful about the back line here. Some Chameleon Skinks are sitting back there, as well as those original Skink Javelin throwers who have now run into melee, and the Feral Cold ones on this side, charging into Ungor Spearman herd, which is not really the best engagement for them, but not the biggest deal ever. Back here, we have some more Feral Cold ones and the Chameleon Skinks that might get run down by these Centaurs, so definitely going to need to use those Cold ones effectively. And the Fire Leech Bull is up top, up to 10 kills right now. Carnosaur chasing off some of those Centaurs with throwing axes, but he'll need to be used in the main fight here, because this is where things are going to get really, really important. The Gorbals and Malagor the Dark Omen, the Crowfather, are the very important targets to take down early, and they're trying to goon Krotgar right now, but he's on foot, so that's not going to be a very easy fight for them. Temple Guards overlapping the engagement, and as they kind of somersault and sumo their way through the Temple Guard, they're going to get deeper into the formation, and when a lot of those models are hitting you all at once, those Gorbals are going to start dropping very, very quickly. They need to find a new engagement, and nice charge coming in from the Feral Carnosaur here to go directly for Malagor, the Crowfather. He actually got a mass buff in this patch as well. He's not easy to take down. Stegodon is melting a lot of these Ungor herd. They're terrified now, but Korok's Man Rippers are going to wreck that Basilodon, without question. They're going to absolutely tear through it in seconds. It's only 650 gold. It's going to be able to do a little bit of damage here, but ultimately not the engagement at once. And it is rampaging. It is reeing all over the battlefield. Cold Blooded, the only thing that will get it back into control. Carnosaur going after the Gorbals right now. Minotaur is chasing after the Stegodon, which just melted in that initial engagement. And I think it got a little bit overzealous and rampaged and went directly into the front of the Minotaurs, and that's where they started chopping it up. They're really good against single models. They're really good against dinos. It's exactly what they're meant for. Typically, you're going to want to bring a lot of Skink Javelins or Chameleon Skinks to whittle them down early, but with Trials of Tzeentch, we don't have that option here, and that means they've been relatively untouched, unmolested so far, and that means they can pretty much go back in and start really plopping a wallop on top of our dinos in the center. Cold Blooded to get this Carnosaur under control again, and the Gorbal is getting smacked around pretty hard here. Krotgar doing pretty good too. Nice cast from Malagor the Dark Omen to kind of clear it up and allow those Minotaurs to get a full charge in that will get rid of the bracing bonus for the Temple Guard. It's a really nice cast there to kind of knock them down, kind of screw up their formation. But the Chameleon Skinks and the Skink Chief can now fire into the Minotaurs. Do a lot of damage there. They don't have a missile block chance. They don't have shields, so you want to whittle those down from range with the Pterodon as well. And the Feral Cold one's coming in from behind. Get a nice rear charge off. Krotgar in the center of everything. Going at it with the Hand of the Gods. And he's going to be a beast here. Holding the line very nicely. And it's Jurassic Park right now versus the Beastmen, the cow people trying to take over. Will they be able to push back the tide of dinosaurs? The Feral Carnosaur has routed, and it's really low HP. Those Gorbals put a wallop on it for sure. Malagor the Dark Omen is untouched right now. Feral Colone's up to 35 kills, and Krotgar beasting it up with 33 right now. He's pushed to the center. Minotaurs got absolutely trashed in that fight as the Chameleon Skinks racked up that damage, and you see they're up to 27 kills right now. A lot of those are on Minotaurs, which is a lot of value being generated from those, because those are 1,400 gold now, and they're pretty much gone. 21 kills. They did kill the Feral Stegodon, which is very nice trade for them, but after that, they haven't done a whole lot. Temple Guard really beaten up in the center, but up to 83 kills, and now this is a very important engagement. Koroks Man Rippers holding the line for right now. A lot of rampaging going on here, even with the Saurus. They're getting their heads chopped off, bisected by those big halberds and big scary Bestigors holding down the center right now. Centaurs with throwing axes still kind of patrolling on the wings, which is how you want to use them. Make sure you run down and shatter everything you possibly can with those guys. They've got the mobility and the perfect vigor to do that for you. Temple Guard got a little bit too far away on my left flank, which is a mistake on my part for sure. Need to bring them back, get them back into the center here, where the Carnosaur will be hunting Malagor the Crowfather. And these halberds are still holding on very nicely. Up to 66 kills right now. And we've got a very important engagement going on. Krotgar's in there, the Feral Colons are in there. A nice rear charge, but the main line from the Lizardmen is starting to rout. And Krotgar really needs to anchor his line here. Get into that Minotaur and start stabbing them. And the cow people will drop. Nice attack there from the Reverend Spear of Sloxla. And they're definitely going to rout here very soon to Terror, probably. They're not immune to Terror. And with that charge coming in, Temple Guard reinforcing, they're all dead now. They didn't even rout. It's actually really surprising. I'm surprised they were able to stick around for that long. But here we go. Charge into the back of the Koroks Man Rippers. They're up to 3,000 HP right now, but it's going to be a whole lot less after all that armor piercing gets into the back. And the Carnosaur bounding around. Definitely munching on some of this stuff in the engagement right now, but routing. And the Centaurs are throwing axes. If they're smart, they're going to be able to just completely overlap this unit. Make sure it never comes back to the fight and never gets that Terror route back in. So, Krotgar in the center here, holding it down, doing what he can. But this is a very, very close engagement. The Centaurs still have their throwing axes, which they're able to fire into the flank and rear of the Temple Guard. And if they get a nice charge in here, they can get rid of the Chameleon Skinks, and this would be pretty catastrophic for the Lizardmen, because they're having a hard time right now, for sure. But the Beastmen aren't, I mean, this is close. It actually is a little bit in the Lizardmen's favor. Bestigors are holding on, and they're kicking ass, but at the end of the day, they are fighting Krotgar, and they are fighting... Wow, really nice charge from the Feral Cold Ones into the back. They are fighting Temple Guard. Both are kind of more dedicated for anti-large purposes than infantry. Versatile units for sure, but these Centaurs need to get into the rear and start rear charging. That's the only way they're going to shift this back. And the Temple Guard will drop to that too. Up to 200 kills right now. Absolutely insane. Krotgar trying to chase them off here and make sure that they can't get that rear charge off. But they're out of ammo. 18 kills right now. It's just going to be melee combat. And charging a Temple Guard, not exactly the best engagement for Centaurs. They can do it. They can definitely do it. And they'll just need a cycle charge and come back in for the fight right afterwards. But the Koroks Man Rippers are losing, and it looks like they are routing. They're gone now. It's the Crowfather. He's the only anchor left for this Beastman line. Nice rear charges coming in, but the Saurus are holding the line super well. Krotgar up to 40 kills, popping that sacred spawning of Zodal. And as the Pterodon Riders land down, they can block the charges here, kind of cause the fear route. And once that happens, it's going to be game, set, match. And the Beastmen will falter as the Lizardmen take it. So, controlling all those feral units when you've got a Skink Chief and Krotgar, it's doable. It's not super enjoyable. So what I think you're going to be seeing in the meta right now for the Lizardmen, who I think are probably one of the weaker factions in the game, one of the things that I think is cool about where Warhammer 2 is in terms of the multiplayer metagame is that there are a lot of really viable factions. Even the low tier stuff, when you think Skaven, when you think Lizardmen, when you think any of those factions that maybe don't have quite as many advantageous matchups as they once did, is that they can still compete against plenty of other factions. When you see high-level Skaven play, you can see them kick serious ass. They are workable. They are definitely at the lower tier, but they can still beat some of the better factions in the game because this game is so matchup specific. So for the Lizardmen, yes, I think overall they are probably one of the weaker factions right now with that nerf to Cold Blooded, the fact that it doesn't heal anymore. It's a big deal for them, no question about it. The fact that they got a bunch of new units that rampage, it's a big deal. And it's probably not going to be rectified until we get the next DLC for them in January, February, March, April, or May, whenever it happens. But at the end of the day, I can see where they're starting to go with this design philosophy. Even if I don't agree with Rampage in general, and I think it's kind of a trash mechanic, I do get where they're going with it. It does mean that you have stuff to micro, which is cool. Definitely when you're thinking about Spear Riders or Horned ones, you want to make sure that you have that leash down to get them under control. And when you're microing that, some people don't like that aspect of it, but I can see where CA is going with it. So I think that the Lizardmen are workable right now, no question about it. They are still a decent faction, but I think that with those changes to Rampage, you're going to be seeing a lot more feral units because you get more cost efficiency out of those than something like Horned ones who are going to be rampaging directly into an enemy battle line. And yes, you have the Cold Blooded to leash them back into combat, but it's one of those things where you're going to get more value generated from a feral unit than some of the other stuff that would be rampaging anyway. So yes, a lot of their stuff got stat buffs across the board. At the end of the day, do you really want your Horned ones or your Cold One Spear Riders charging directly into halberds and bonus versus large monsters like Shaggus and stuff? No, you don't. So overall, definitely a nerf to the faction, and I don't know what their obsession is with Rampage. I don't know why they wanted to add it to more units, but I don't know. It's one of those things where they're a fun faction to play, but they've definitely taken a hit, and they are certainly less good than they were when Warhammer 2 first dropped. So with this build right here, I had no control of it whatsoever, but the Feral Cold ones, they did a lot of work for their price point, 450 gold. A lot of kills, controlled my backline pretty nicely, got some good charges into some pretty high value targets like the Bestigor Herd, that kind of stuff. The Communion's Kings did a lot of work against those Minotaurs, which was nice, and Krotgar. I'm kind of glad, honestly, that I didn't get him on Grimlock or something like that, because he would have been beaten up pretty hardcore by a Gorbel squad and by the Minotaurs. So on foot, he was able to anchor the line, get in there, pop the Cold Blood on everything, be cost efficient, and he did quite a bit of work for me right there. Temple Guard, 199 kills, got some chevrons there too. Pretty fun stuff, and the feral units, I mean, they were just reeing all over the battlefield. I wouldn't say they made a huge impact on that battle, but they are relatively cheap terror, all things considered, for what you're able to bring to the table there. So, fun battle. Trials of Tzeentch. Always enjoy seeing what the Changer of Ways will be sending my way. And a very close one at the end of the day. I think it was only Krotgar and the remnants of some Temple Guard and the Pterodons that were left against Malagor and his Koroks Man-Rippers when they last routed. So, hope you guys enjoyed that battle. Plenty more content coming very soon. And I'll see you next time. Any Pride, signing out for now.